And now let's narrow our focus and look at one SCO member in particular, Russia. The Russian economy was just given a stamp of approval by none other than the World Bank. I'm not joking. Russia, the country embroiled in a seemingly endless war, the country languishing under countless sanctions, that very same Russia is beating all economic expectations, so much so that it is now once again a high-income country. This is according to the latest World Bank data. It clearly shows that Russia is on the rise. You know the last time Russia had a high-income economy? It was back in 2014, the year that invaded Ukraine's Crimea. That is the year when the West started putting sanctions on Russia and Moscow felt the brunt. They felt it for a while. But over the last decade, Russia has adapted. It has found ways to bypass the constant sanctions. And now it is back to being among the richest nations in the world. So how exactly did this happen? First, let's look at what the World Bank is saying. Its list of high-income nations depends on one factor, and that is gross national income per capita. Now, gross national income, or GNI, is like the GDP, but there's a key difference between domestic and national, GDP and GNI. GDP measures the economic growth within a country's border. In contrast, GNI also counts the income that is sent from overseas, like remittances or money that a business makes overseas. GNI adds that. That's the simplest way to differentiate between GDP and GNI. So the World Bank says that Russia's GNI has been rising. And in 2023, it entered the high income bracket. It crossed $14,000 per capita. So how did Moscow manage this in the middle of a war? Well, the country has transformed itself. It is now relying on a wartime economy. The demand for weapons and military services is fueling economic growth. Think about Russian soldiers, the ones on the front lines. Many are new recruits, mobilized for the war. They are being paid more than Russia's oil industry workers. So many people from Russia's poorer regions have signed up to fight, which means money has flowed to all corners of the country. Now you may wonder, where is all this money coming from? How is Russia generating the revenue to pay its soldiers? Isn't it supposed to be under crippling sanctions? Well, Russia is under sanctions, thousands of them, but it is far from crippled. The sanctions have hit Russia's trade, its exports, but just to the West. The US, UK and EU are the ones imposing the sanctions, along with their friends like Canada, Australia and Japan. Many of these countries were once export markets for Russia, so Moscow has had to adapt and move away from these Western nations. It has created alternative trade opportunities with old allies like China, North Korea and Iran, and also with neutral countries like India, the Gulf states and African nations. And this rerouting of trade has helped Russia. Last year, the trade rebounded by almost 7%. And that was a major reason for Russia's income rank upgrade. Overall, their GNI per capita grew by more than 11% last year. If we look at the basic GDP, it grew by 3.6% last year. Russia's GDP grew by 3.6%. That's more than all the countries that have imposed sanctions on Moscow. The US, for instance, grew by 2.5%. The UK by a measly 0.1%. Even Australia grew by just 3%, but Russia had 3.6%. So clearly, whatever Moscow is doing has been working. But there's one thing to note here. Every country that sanctioned Russia was already in the high-income group. It was the rich nations trying to keep Russia down. So Putin turned to the rest of the world, to the global south. And this is why Russia is defying all expectations.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
On the show today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon has moved across to the West Indies. What can we expect from this?
Hello, I'm Alison Green, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. Today we have a special show.
Start with a report on India's shifting nuclear posture. The first time since India officially became a nuclear power.
Hello and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.